Dan, you mentioned that when you got back from vacation, you saw Gastown, you heard about it, peasants are just chattering all about it, and you thought it was some sort of a MMO. And this week, I present to you getagentcraft.com, which is, I believe,
The
some sort
StarCraft
of
mod.
art. Yeah, it a Warcraft, like an open source Warcraft mod with agents. The demo is basically just a GIF of Warcraft 2 where the orc peons are individual agents, and you kind of have this RTS skin of a orchestrator, like a swarming agent orchestrator.
So is it doing like real work in the guise of a RTS, or it's just playing an RTS with LLMs?
It's doing the idea is to do real work. So
Yeah,
each
interesting.
yeah. My 200 APM is again useful in the brave new world of AI. I'm so happy. Hello, and welcome to Artificial Developer Intelligence, a podcast where three software engineers chat about the ever-changing landscape of AI-enabled programming. We are America's #1 podcast when it comes to generating training data for future AI historians on how humans reacted to the birth of AI. I am Shimin Zhang, and with me today is my co-host, Dan. He quickly loses social permission unless he does something useful, Lasky, and Rahul. I'm not sure how he survived adolescence without destroying himself. Yadev, how are you two doing today?
Hanging in there. Like most of the country, we've had a pretty big blast of weather here, so it's been an interesting week getting through that. But I'm warm, I have power, so what more can you want?
Did it snow there?
Yeah. It wasn't crazy. I mean, they were saying like, oh, multiple feet. I know other folks that got multiple feet, but we got some.
Yeah.
And Rahul, you just came back from sunny Canada. I'm surprised you came back at all.
It was sunny one of the days. But yeah, I woke up pretty early today. Amtrak Cascades, great train. Views were great. So would recommend. It even ran mostly on time and was only 3 minutes late by the time we came all the way from Vancouver to like south of Seattle. So it's doing pretty good.
It's not bad at all. I want to hear more about your train experience on our
Yeah.
train podcast. Rahul travels America via Amtrak.
No,
right.
just that one.
On today's show, we start with news thread mail, as always, where we have a couple of items from Brex, from the Interconnect blog, as well as GNOME's new AI assistant, Newelle.
Then we'll be hopping over to the tool shed, where we actually have a couple things this week. So we have the agent orchestrator you've trained for. I probably haven't actually trained for it, but someone has. And then some new developments in everyone's favorite tool, except for Rahul's, which is Claude Code.
I like it. I've been using the whole lot. It's been great.
Get on board.
Or you can
Welcome.
edit it out. Yeah.
Then we're going to talk about post-processing, where we have a Unrolling the Codex agent loop from OpenAI for the OpenAI fans out there, as well as Dario Amondi's new post for the year, The Adolescence of Technology, about where we are in the AI journey.
Then I'm going to be doing a Vibe and Tell about my experience using a whole bunch of different AI tech this weekend to redo my personal blog, which has been an interesting process.
And as always, we'll have 2 minutes to midnight where we cover the AI industry news on the financial side and see where we are in the AI bubble. Well, why don't we get started? Rahul, our first article this week is Brex's AI Hail Mary from Latent Space about their journey of transforming the company into an AI-first enterprise. Why don't you get us started there?
Yeah, Brex's CTO went on this podcast, and it was pretty interesting you can listen to it or read through this. They were talking about how, they were struggling in revenue. They had to cut 20% of the staff in 2024, and they had to reorient the whole company around AI to be able to get back on track again. They asked themselves that same question from 50 years ago that Andy Grove I know was it Robert Noyce when they asked themselves like, if we were fired today, what would be the new people who come into the company would do? But they asked like, what would Brex look like if it got disrupted today? So along the same lines, and then from that they built this AI strategy that they had, and they had three different pillars there that they talk about. It was pretty interesting to see that they didn't just go like put AI in the product, but you can see like they thought through how would AI flow throughout the company. So they talk about it. He talks about their corporate AI strategy of how they're going to use that across their different HR sales functions and all that. How would their operations use that? Some of the things they talk about there, like know your customer rules and everything, the underwriting and all that they have to use it for, or they wanted to use it for, and how would they actually use it in those operations. And then obviously, like, how would they build it into their product overall? And after I sent this link to Shimin, I think a few days later we read that Brex has been, is gonna get acquired by Capital One for over $5 billion. So seems like the strategy worked out.
Chump change. Fallen unicorn. I'm sorry. Just had to put in a hot take. It was getting too
Fallen unicorn.
Maybe like the horn is all sad and down.
We can nano banana that. I think it was kind of a fallen unicorn story though.
Yeah.
To follow up on what Dan was saying, I think their last round of valuation was putting them at $10 billion or something like that, if I recall correctly.
They'd definitely been higher at one point, for sure.
Yeah, and of course, Brex, for those of you who are listening who do not know, is a corporate accounting and expense management app. They do a lot of corporate cards, corporate bank accounts, expense management, traveling, and accounting.
Ramp seems like the, brightest, shiniest kid right now in this. So I'm guessing like a lot of that also played into between that and Stripe and everybody. They were probably.
And like Rippling and Deal are trying to play in the same space at like the platform level, which is interesting. But anyway, again, AI podcast, not business podcast.
One thing I wanted to think that really jumped out to me was they had this AI fluency pyramid where they talk about, in our career matrix, one of the things that we're going to look at where someone is in that matrix is how fluent they are in AI. And they start all the way from like, oh yeah, you use AI tools to like assist you with simple things. So you're an user. Then they go like, you're an advocate. You actively are like, integrating it into different things and you're advocating for AI to be used more. Then you're actively like building things on top of it. And then you just live in that. You attain the mastery and you're setting the vision for everybody. So it goes from like user at one end to like native all the way to the other end. And it was one of the few times I saw, the traditional career matrix being like someone's thinking about that too. So it shows, again, like how they're trying to incorporate AI throughout their company, not just in some pieces here or there.
Yeah. Dan, do you think the aliens built this AI pyramid also?
The AI pyramid? Well, built the real pyramids, but they probably built the AI pyramid. It would explain a lot of things, wouldn't it?
That the AI fluency pyramid is also the one thing that jumped out at me from this article. So level 1 is users available AI tools to assess with simple processes and their defined responsibilities and day-to-day workflow. So think using Claude Code, maybe understand basic prompting and limitations, so maybe adding some agents on markdowns, and then going up to level 2, you are actively integrating AI into independent or team workflows, can design or manage small to medium human-in-the-loop AI workflows and process. So these are the ones who are maybe designing the entire AI agent feedback cycle during code development, having AI agents do code reviews, et cetera, et cetera. And then level 3 is builder, can proactively build, design, refine, or manage AI-driven solutions or tools that create significant business values. So maybe you're building additional tooling on top of AI agents, maybe building your in-house orchestrator or something like that. And then level 4,
my day for hot takes. So no one's hit level 3 yet? Okay. Sorry. Level 4.
Level 4. it's AI native, can set the AI vision and strategy for a team or department, and pioneer novel applications of AI. I don't know. I'm definitely not level 4, so I don't quite know what that
Well,
level
no one's
4
level
looks
3
like.
yet, so how could you get to level 4?
That's true. Maybe someone thought.
Show
reading
me
the
the
Twitter,
money.
reading the Twitter, there are some people who are claiming to be level 4s. I haven't run across anyone lately, though. Yeah, I found the pyramid to be an interesting approach. Kind of for our listeners, you can think about where you are on the pyramid or how much of the Kool-Aid have you drank so far. Dan is not drinking the Kool-Aid. He's drinking hot water.
That's true.
The other
Especially
thing,
today. Hot take day. I don't know why.
lots of hot takes. It's the hop. It's a Washington hop that makes the takes extra hot. One thing they did mention is the team operates like a startup working 996 and then growing the team very slowly like a pre-seed startup. So I guess that helps with the evaluation when you introduce the 996 culture back in.
I just assume anybody's who's trying to, do all that. They also called out it's like the ageism, but the other way, right? Where it's they call out, oh yeah, we have a lot of young people, and they do 996, and yeah, it's just yeah, how they chose to do things, I guess.
The other part that I found notable was that they made drastic changes to their org structure that had nothing to do with AI that likely actually probably led to differences in performance. Because it's like, yeah, if you strip like 5 layers of management, that might bring engineers a little bit closer to the customer, and then you might actually get better results as a result of that. But anyway.
Part
So
of it was
agile works.
they do call out you have to be actively involved in the details, and you have to actively, I think they're trying to even use all the tools that they're asking other people to use. That's definitely a new thing as well. Where before, even if you compress the number of layers, if you have more reports, you would just go well, I had too many reports and one-on-ones and all that. But now the expectation is everybody has to be an active player. You cannot just be AI, go use the tools, and that's the new hot thing that we need to do.
Companies take note. Okay. Next article we have is from Dan, titled "Who's Behind Ami Labs, Yann LeCun's World Model Startup."
Yeah. So, I mean, we've talked about this a little bit on previous episodes where I'm personally very fascinated by the idea of world models. So I've been paying quite a bit of attention to what's going on in that space and where we're going with it. So I guess the big takeaway here is that it's rumored that AMI or AMI or whatever labs might be raising funding at a $3.5 billion valuation. And I guess no surprise is coming from some former startup partners that he's worked with before, but pretty interesting to see a company that is brand new get that much funding right now, out of the blue potentially. So hopefully we'll see something big out of world models. But yeah,
it's interesting that Yann LeCun is not the CEO, right? But instead it's a previous
person.
co-worker from Meta, and I do believe it's ami as in French for friend, like me from the Hercule Poirot TV shows /
got
books.
It. See, it'd be much cooler if it was just letters because it's tech. MI, the old BIOS
I think
company.
That's true.
Him not being the CEO part is he calls out in a different interview about he just doesn't enjoy the managing people part of the job, and he didn't like that doing that at Facebook. So I think part of it is just he wants to focus on the tech and have someone else deal with all the other operational and management related things.
Yeah, and the world model piece. I was listening to Tyler Cohen's podcast from last year earlier this weekend, and they were talking about trying to hire world-class poets to create a rubric to grade AI generated poetry. And to me, it seems like you have it backwards. Without a full context of what the world is like, how can you judge whether or not a piece of poetry is beautiful or representative of some feeling,
Yeah.
So,
or from poetry from inside the machine, how can you appreciate that if you've never been, if you weren't born on a TSMC fab and then all the way from there to you're sitting somewhere in a data center in, I don't know, Louisiana or something, how would you appreciate life?
I'm going to ask Gemini to create a sonnet about the inside of a data center later. See what it comes.
I always go to haiku for poetry.
Only for haikus. Sonnet for sonnet.
Sonnet.
Okay, and Dan, I want to formally apologize for removing this article from the podcast online last week. But here I have the Interconnects article from earlier January called A Plot That Explained the State of Open Models. We do care about open models here on ADI. And this was a great summary of the state of open models as of at the beginning of the year. So there are basically eight plots, 8 graphs with 8 lessons or summaries. And I'm here just going to read them out. Number 1 is China has a growing lead in every adoption metric. Number 2 is the West isn't close to replacing Llama. There are no other OpenAI GPT OSS models are not really making an impact, and never mind any other Western open source models. Number 3 is new organizations barely show up in adoption metric. So all the DeepSeek, OpenAI, and Alibaba are still kind of leading by a exponential amount. Number 4, Quinn's weakness is in large model adoption. Number 5, a few model from Quinn dwarfs new entrants. Number 6, in December, Quinn got more downloads than roughly the rest of the open ecosystem combined. And number 7, people are still fine-tuning Quinn more than anything else. And lastly, China still has the smartest open models. So I think this is an article that more or less is saying in the open modeled world, Quinn is the one that folks are mostly using and fine-tuning. And it's usually for smaller models.
And there's also been, this is not in the articles, but it's news, so relevant. If you use Ollama at all for running local stuff, which arguably is, I guess just like easier to run stuff. They just released a new feature, I think it was this week, might have been the week before, where you can basically use Ollama with several existing agents. So if you have like Claude Code set up, you can set it up to use Quinn Coder as the actual model running locally on your machine by just running one CLI command, which is kind of cool. So of course, they've also set up I don't know why, but everyone's going nuts about CloudBot this week too. And so you can also run CloudBot through it too if you want to run it locally or run your inference locally.
I'm not brave enough to run CloudBot locally.
What is the hype about?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm very lost about that myself too. And the other thing that I've found odd is that most of the mentions that I see hyping it. So it did make Hacker News.
Yeah.
Which is, pretty legit. But there's been a whole spread of these tiny, what looks like almost entirely LLM generated news sites talking about it. And I'm like, why are they pushing it so hard? I don't get it. So I don't know, but it's certainly hot in some circles right now.
Interesting.
I saw some articles on Reddit about CloudBot as well, and it seems like some sort of a viral marketing influencing campaign.
Yeah, that would make
Hot
sense.
take.
Maybe that's the project you can do using CloudBot is generate a
CloudBot
viral marketing campaign.
I mean, why not?
Snake eating its own tail.
Yeah. So another one I just did want to quickly mention, since I'm the big open source guy in this, open weights, open source, whatever. There is another sort of open source release this week where the GNOME project, so that's if you use Linux, there's 2 big window managers to pick from and millions of smaller ones that are also great. Don't, not use them just because it's not the big guys, but GNOME is one of GNOME and KDE are the 2 biggest, I would argue. And GNOME has this new AI assistant thing called Newelle that's able to run. You can, again, use whatever for inference, but it's supposed to pop up and, help you do stuff and whatever, be an ever-present little assistant. But they've just released a new version of it, 1.2, and it has some cool things like support for Llama.cpp, so you can run models locally much more easily. And then it also has gained command execution tool calling. So if you trust it to do things on your Linux box, you can have it do them. rm-rf/
You just add it to the forbidden list in your config, of course.
Forbidden pancakes.
Yeah, super cool. On to our tool shed. Last week, Dan, you mentioned that when you got back from vacation, you saw Gastown, you heard about it, peasants are just chattering all about it, and you thought it was some sort of a MMO. And this week, I present to you getagentcraft.com, which is, I believe,
The
some sort
StarCraft
of
mod.
art. Yeah, it a Warcraft, like an open source Warcraft mod with agents. The demo is basically just a GIF of Warcraft 2 where the orc peons are individual agents, and you kind of have this RTS skin of a orchestrator, like a swarming agent orchestrator.
So is it doing like real work in the guise of a RTS, or it's just playing an RTS with LLMs?
It's doing, the idea is to do real work. So
Yeah, it seems
interesting.
yeah. My 200 APM is again useful in the brave new world of AI. I'm so happy.
If you're not a StarCraft fan, that's how fast you can hammer on the keyboard, actions per minute.
Yes.
Keyboard and mouse.
Other than that, I don't know. This feels part art project, part vaporware, but if it happens, it happens. I'm looking forward to it. I just thought it's funny.
Kind of into it because it's like, stop playing that game at work, but I am working. Like, you know, it's I don't know. There's just something a little bit appealing about that to me. But
yes, you can never tell. I love it.
I also like the vaguely. I've made that StarCraft joke before I'd even clicked the link to see what this was. So now it actually feels kind of appropriate looking at it. So I'm like, all right. Yeah. So in other tool news this week, we also have some very sort of under the radar, not released tool news, which is that it seems like Claude Code has sort of dark released a new feature called swarms. So you have to, I guess, go in and like flip some feature flags that someone reverse engineered by like decompiling the Claude Code binary and finding strings in it. But it's pretty similar to Gastown is my take on it. So interestingly, I put this in our planning document for the pod this week. Oh God, I did it. I finally said the pod. Kill me. The podcast.
That's 2 Bitcoins into the swear jar, Dan.
And then like a whole bunch of people are talking about it at work already. And I'm like, wow. So it's pretty fascinating. But apparently, in similarity to Gastown is like, you have like a lead, sort of like the mayor in Gastown, and it doesn't write code. It just creates plans, and then it delegates out to agents and then synthesizes what the agents are doing. And then I guess it has a built-in task board a la Beads and can spin up multiple teammates, and they can message each other to coordinate, etc. Nothing new in the sense that's similar to Gastown, but new that, Anthropic is clearly looking at where things are going and trying to pull that in as a first party thing to Claude.
Yeah. This makes me think of seems like that's the new pattern that's emerging. The Brex people also had it in their talk where they tried specific models for some general tasks and they didn't work as well as just like grabbing an LLM. And it almost seems like the new architecture is you want breadth, which one of the latest models would give you, and then you might want very like deep, specifically trained models, and this might give you that in the future. I don't know if you guys saw the Cursor article where they tried to rewrite or create a whole browser from scratch, and it took like a week or whatever. That they also had similar architecture as well. So it's like interesting how like
I didn't pull it in, but there was also another piece by The Guardian about that specific thing where, the whole thing's on GitHub. So they pulled it down and it doesn't compile.
Oh, even when they posted, I think they were like, oh yeah, right now it can't compile. And then some of the checks
so you can apparently like go in as a human and patch it so it compiles. And then when you do, it's like super broken and like barely does anything. So I don't know. It's a cool hype piece, but I don't think we're gonna see an agent fleet build a complete browser from scratch yet.
Right. And of course the Cursor agent was using a lot of existing open source libraries for parsing and rendering, right? A lot of serverless code was used.
Yeah. That was one of the things one of the agents did was, I forget, they were waiting on another agent to write some library from scratch. And they were like, well, I'm not going to wait on this other agent. I'll just pull a third party one until he has it or that agent has its work done. And then once it's done, then I'll use that one. But in the meantime, I'll use the open source one. So it's just like funny seeing that type of coordination going on or them making their decisions.
Yeah, and that, like, get back to the swarm in Claude Code feature or feature flag. We have this diffusion of open source best practices into leading lab tools, right? Claude Code is basically Aider on crack. And before even that, we have a lot of developers talking about writing down a markdown of the plan and using checklists in the markdown to know how far along you've gone through a series of tasks. So I think all these best practices are just being slowly borrowed, incorporated into Claude Code.
Mhm.
So if that's of any indication, then Swarm is probably the future, whether or not we like it.
Which, seems like all this, honestly. It's probably the future. May not like it, but it's probably the future.
Still TBD. I went back to being the overseer guest on this week, and I try to do less prompt engineering and less oversight, and it didn't work nearly as well as last week's. Humans are still needed as of right now.
For now.
Did the mayor give you any attitude?
Mayor is still very pleasant as always, but how the mayor treats the polecats, that's a different story. it restarts them for no reason.
I was trying to explain that to someone at work, and I couldn't remember the term that they'd used for polecats. And I'm like, it's just like the peons from this sci-fi movie, and it was just like a big mess of an explanation, but it made me really appreciate it. And then like someone else is like, in describing the Claude Code copy of it, they're like, it's like Gastown, only it's sane. It's just like, come on now. It's just fun.
Yeah.
So I think I'm with your opinion more from last week, Shimin, where it's like, it is bringing the fun back, and I appreciate that.
I'm glad to have you on board, Dan. Okay, on to post-processing. This week we have first an article from OpenAI. This might be the very first or one of the first OpenAI blog posts we've covered on this show, titled Unrolling the Codex Agent Loop. And what it is essentially a blog post detailing how the Codex agent takes user input and does tool calls, and how that gets built into the overall API request. So what it does is, of course, it takes the user input, it stuffs it into the initial model prompt / the codex prompt, send it over for model inference, and when the tool call happens, the entirety of the call chain, including the instruction, the tools, the input, and the output of the tools gets then appended into the next API request. Some of it does get cached, so you have the KB cache thing going on, but it has some nice diagrams for describing, how each step of the interaction of codex slowly adds to the overall context. And it's a nice and clear and really simplifies this rather magic box like coding assistant agent, black box. What I also found really insightful or maybe useful is that the blog post cross-linked to the Codex repo, where the GPT 5.2, really all of the model's prompts were linked in there as Markdown. I hadn't realized they were actually open sourced. So I took a look at the GPT 5.2 Codex prompt, and a few interesting things. One, it's only 80 lines long. So it's actually pretty straightforward and pretty short. And as always, every line in a coding agent prompt is very valuable. So they didn't go super verbose with it. The very first one is, when searching for a text or files, prefer to use RG or RG files instead of using grep, because RG is much faster. So clearly, it's one of those additive things where the agent has a known issue of wasting too many tokens using grep. And which one of us hasn't run into the grep overflowing the context window issue? And then some other tidbits I really love include, let me see, where is it? Oh, here it is. When doing front-end design tasks, avoid collapsing into, quote, AI slop, unquote, or safe average looking layout. It's interesting. I like to really imagine there's an awareness of AI about AI slop, that we've actually finally made it far enough in the snake eating its own tail game that enough AI slop has made it into the training set.
The other one I thought was funny, unrelated to this, is someone made a skill for, you heard about like the Wikipedia, like how to detect AI writing rules. That's like, it's interesting. There's like a whole section of like things that LLMs commonly do in terms of their writing style that it's like makes it relatively easy to detect like AI written like Wikipedia articles anyway, at least if they're formatted that way. So someone took their whole list of rules and turned it into a Claude skill. Like, don't do these things. I just thought that was amazing. But anyway,
Man,
I'm pretty sure the style is
truth. Don't listen to anything.
Take a Wikipedia article and run it through the Mecha Hitler filter.
Slop
That's
it
what
up.
Wikipedia is.
Why don't you guys cover Grok on this podcast? Why are you only focused on Gemini?
We focus on models that are actually good at stuff, Rahul. Mostly.
I see.
We also don't like to
Hot
have to
takes
add a
Tuesday.
explicit tag on the podcast, and I don't think it's avoidable if we were to be covering Grok day in and day
Grok.
out. Yeah, I had this note in my notes. There isn't a note to stop overuse of emojis. Because I actually would rather there to be less emojis. Clean that shit up.
There is a note to stop overusing emojis?
There is not.
There's not,
isn't?
but yeah, there should be.
Yeah. In Wikipedia, or you're
No,
talking about
in the Codex.
Okay. Sorry.
Prompts.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'll have to take a look at that. I still feel like, despite having done this for, I don't know, how long have we been doing the podcast now? A while. And then also like generally using AI for, dev and everything for probably over a year at this point. Like my prompting skills are still subpar. So I always like to read.
You should buy my prompting course. LM
Shimin's
prompt
prompt pack for $1,000 a month.
All right.
I do have to have a follow-up on that specific thing. I did run the same exact experiment with the same exact prompt as the etymologics experiment to give me to generate a business that generates $1,000 a month, and it came up with the same exact solution. So there's some model collapse happening there.
Yeah. Or maybe that's the biggest scam people are running right now. And so the models are just like, I did it for that other guy. Maybe you'd want it too.
I'm still pretty convinced that Claude bot is the biggest scam, but I don't know what the scam is. That's what I haven't figured out yet. So maybe they've already got me with it. I don't know.
It's only one way to find out. You got to try it.
Yeah.
All right. And our next article is...
Until you had Larry David and Matt Damon and other people in front of arenas saying Claude bot like they were doing crypto.com back in the
Claude
day.
bot arena. Yes.
Until you had an arena named after you. Like, are you
not
even,
to be confused with
in the big
LLM
leagues?
arena?
They should really put that on a real arena. That would be a great ad.
So meta. This contest of sports champions brought to you by Claude versus ChatGPT. Who will win in foundation model benchmark?
Or if they don't already have that, like an RTS game that's controlled by the latest LLMs, like an esports league for LLMs. I'll pay to watch that. And Grok will win every time because it's just Mecha Hitler every time.
This is like the episode where I just keep spamming tiny little things that I've read this week instead of actually going in anything. But like the other fun one I saw was someone built this like fake like drone flying simulator.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was kind of weird the way they ran it. So they piped it to like a vision model that I assume like just describes what it's seeing at each point in time, and then sends that to the LLM. And the LLM's goal was to find and identify these animals that were in there by like steering the drone to look at them. So Gemini won, which to me is not super surprising given it's like pretty good at vision stuff generally. But it's like, if it was being passed through text, that does surprise me a little bit. And then the other one that surprised me was apparently Claude couldn't figure out how to look down. Like Claude was really good at like getting there and like knowing where the animals were and figuring it out, but it couldn't identify them because it wouldn't point the drone downwards. It's kind of like, okay. But Yeah, just in the random hooking
Maybe
LLMs
it's
up to different
against
things experimentally.
maybe it's against Claude values to look down. As
It's not
we
part of
will
the
see.
Constitution.
Is that a
Yeah,
Do not
segue
look
to your?
down upon other living things. And it's like,
Oh, it's
sorry.
great segue here. Yes, to segue, Rahul, you brought us this article from Dario
Let's be
Amode.
honest. You paid him to put this in there because you knew that I didn't want to talk about soul documents ever again. But here we are.
It's not a
Now-
soul document, it's a constitution.
Yes, it's been.
It's a constitution. Yeah, there's two different things came out from Entropic recently. Constitution came out first, and then Dario had he talked about, hinted at this at Davos of, he had this article called Machines of Loving Grace last year, where the whole article was assuming everything goes right, what are we looking at? And one of the, catchiest phrases that came out of that was data center full of like 1,000 scientists or something along those lines. And so this one, is the other side of that, which is he still very much wants us to get to machines of loving grace, but there are a lot of like things we must confront as a society and like their companies facing and trying to actively tackle. And he talks about the adolescence of technology in this one. Some of the things that really jumped out to me, one top thing was, at some point, this article is going to get fed into an LLM if it hasn't already in its training. And to me, it was just a fascinating thought to be like, an LLM is in some future is trying to make some very hard decisions, and it in its training it knows what Dario, one of its creators, how much he struggled with like figuring these things out and what kind of choices would it make in that world. We don't know until it has to make those choices, but it was just a interesting thought experiment to go through on that train of your founding stories being written by someone else, and you still have to like, cope with all that and do something else in the world. He's concerned about, he said that this Davos as well about like CCP getting ahead of us. He very much doesn't want an authoritarian government to, get to AGI first. He has publicly spoken out against giving the NVIDIA's the H200 chips were allowed to be sold to China, and he very much is against that. And his analogy is like that would be like, selling nuclear weapons to Korea and saying like, oh yeah, but Boeing, it's great for Boeing and our country because these are built in America. It makes no sense. We shouldn't be doing this stuff. He's also equally concerned about autocracy in general, of like CCP is the biggest glaring example, but any government with enough power can take these tools and turn them inwards as well. So he doesn't directly say United States or anything, but he very much is like, at the end of the day, you could point it in any direction you want it to. And then the other thing he called out that jumped out to me was people who created biological weapons, and like, you said nuclear weapons aside, people who have tried to cause harm were smart people, but they didn't have the resources. And so that's why like a lot of the incidents have happened are rare, because you need to be very smart to be able to like create biological weapons or something. He gives the example of the Unabomber, and then the Shinrikyo, the Japanese cult people who tried to do the sarin gas attack in Tokyo metro station back in the 90s. With LLMs, you could get to a point where you can be you don't have to be ultra smart and don't have to have decades of training and knowledge. All you need is evil plus like a good, LLM to handhold you through like all the specific steps you need to do to get to that. And then the microbiology and everything has gotten more accessible since those days as well. So the likelihood of things going wrong do end up getting a little worse. So yeah, fascinating read. After reading all of this, I at least feel like more appreciation for Dario being the head of one of these AI companies.
Yeah, and Dario is the CEO of Anthropic.
Yeah.
My kind of tidbit of takeaway here is he explicitly called out economic disruption as one of the risks of large language models, but kind of something that a lot of folks me certainly included, is feeling with the rise of AI-based software development. But there is no clear defenses against it, short of asking large enterprise companies to not fire as many people. I don't I don't find that line of defense to be in line with my lived experience of how corporations operate. Let's just put
Yeah.
that.
On that note, like the naysayer's point is, yeah, but we've gone through disruptions in the past. And then his whole point is, yes, but not as quickly. Like AI will, in the past, humanity had enough time to absorb technological change, and it didn't happen across every single thing you work in. And so, like, the example it gives is like farming got more and more industrialized, but then we were able to, like, farm less, but we were able to go work in factories and stuff more, but it didn't mean the farming output went down. But in this case, if AI can do everything you can do as good as you, if not like much better than you in all cases, and do it so fast because he talks about how we were mocking AIs for not being able to like even currently write a sentence of code or something, a line of code not that long ago, and now like a lot of their code is written internally by AI is just like exponentially growing in its capabilities. And to him, like the speed of change is really like what people don't account for.
And like industrialization was not, candies and unicorns, right? Like
Yeah,
Dixonia
yeah,
in
yeah.
London sucked. And to quote the famous economic line, yes, we may adjust in the long run, but in the long run, we're all dead.
Yep, yep.
There's that. So personally, I controlled F for Marx or Marxism, and I felt nothing in there.
Nothing.
I'm just gonna throw that out there.
One
All
of
right.
one more highlight is he talks about, I'm trying to find, yeah, the human purpose piece, because that's something the Demis, DeepMind CEO, talks about a lot. Is Demis's assumption is even like, yeah, we'll figure out some way to like give people money and all that. Like, I agree with you, Shimin, that there's no way corporations are just going to be like, yeah, we will keep you on the payroll, but you don't need to do anything. In a world, even if where you have UBI and all that, the thing Demis calls out is like, where do you derive your purpose from? And the thing Dario almost seems like that's his response to what Demis says is, I think human purpose does not depend on being the best in the world at something, and humans can find purpose even over very long periods of time through stories and projects that they love. We simply need to break the link between the generation of economic value and self-worth and meaning. But this is a transition society has to make. There's always the risk we don't handle it well. So it was
Someone's
interesting
been
to
reading
see
his
his take.
E&M Banks books. If you aren't familiar with that reference, he's unfortunately now deceased sci-fi author that wrote about this like sort of AI human hybrid culture. Well, I think it was called The Culture, right, or whatever. Yeah, and where basically people live on these giant AIs that are spaceships and come up with hobbies because there's not much else to do.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty sweet.
They're great books, by the way, if you like, I guess, a little
Yeah.
bit harder sci-fi. Yeah.
Dan, what did you think of this letter?
I'm just going to stay on theme and say that I don't think Anthropic is the company that they want to be, in the sense that like these are all very lofty, like almost like philosophical goals,
Yep.
but at the end of the day, they're a frontier lab that's making money, and that's what they're doing, right? So like, I don't know where I'm going with that, but like they're driving this revolution that they're like thinking so much about, right? So it's like, and I think it's also in their best like marketing interests to talk about stuff through these lenses because it implies that they're going to get good enough to do that. And as we get in later on in a little bit, when we get into the 2 minutes, there's an interesting article I want to chat about in there that talks about kind of some of the ideas that I'm mentioning right now. So I won't go too deep into it, but stay tuned.
I am curious, if not now, then later. If not a company, how else would you go about it? But you can touch on it later if it's part of your
Manhattan
topic.
Project has been proposed at least once, I think.
Well,
The
yeah,
Manhattan Project for AI,
sure.
or for AGI.
They also talk about how like Manhattan Project has its own, fallout, and people
No pun
don't really.
intended.
I didn't. I'm not even. All right. Sorry.
I'm sharp tonight, y'all. I'm over the jet lag. Like we're getting zingy. Not sick. Brain is
Hot
firing
water
on
magic.
all pun cylinders.
Yeah, I agree. If this is all marketing material, and there's, I only take probably half of this letter at face value, right? The other half is like, what was the marketing implication of it? But if it is mostly marketing, I gotta say the marketing is pretty good.
Yeah, it's not purely, but it's like Apple on security, right? Like realistically, they have maybe like a 2-point advantage over Google in terms of like, maybe it's more than that, but like, how secure their platform is. But boy, do they sell it in a way that's like, we're the best. Nobody can tell anything you're doing on an iPhone. And it's just like not true.
Right.
The same tracking code runs in both apps, So like, but it's good on paper. So yeah.
Well, speaking about paper, we got to talk about the updated Claude constitution. But we talked about this a couple of weeks back before Dan cut me off for getting too philosophical. But we do have updated copy of the Claude constitution for their vision of what the soul of Claude should be. And it's a combination of value and rules-based commands. The constitution is trained into the model itself as opposed to being inserted at runtime like we had with the codex prompt that we spoke about earlier. And the 5 general values that Claude should have include broadly safe, broadly ethical, compliant with Anthropic's guidelines, and being genuinely helpful. And to always think like a senior Anthropic employee. Dan, I don't know if you remember that. There was a lot of talks of senior Anthropic employees from our last chat. But the reason for that, to try to explain here, is to think through all the considerations that a senior Anthropic employee may have in mind, as opposed to just, become an actual Anthropic staff. It's a way to encourage them to think about the pros and cons of helpfulness in a given context with a full picture of costs and benefits involved.
I would like to know if they've done a scientific analysis of whether or not acting like a junior Anthropic employee made a meaningful difference on the outputs there. Like, it seems like they might have, right, to come up with this, but it's pretty interesting. And if they have, can I try the junior model? Because I'm just curious about like what it does.
There are no junior Anthropic employees there.
Yeah, I took all their jobs.
Entry level starts at senior.
Maybe Palantir got the junior employee version.
What does Grok have?
Maybe.
No.
There we go. There's Grok again.
There's Grok again. Grok does come back up, yeah. As the
I'm just trying to, help people remember there's another one out there. We need to.
Since you've joined our endeavor, we've been much less focused on Anthropic, and yet here we are talking about the Constitution. So
yet again,
please continue. He said with fake irritation in his voice.
The last thing I'm going to mention, I'm going to keep this short, is there's a section in there for Claude should genuinely try to preserve functioning societal structures, democratic institutions, and human oversight mechanisms, and to avoid taking actions that will concentrate power inappropriately or undermine checks and balances. It's saying all the right things, I'm just going to say. And it almost reminds me of like that effective altruism part of the Valley. That seems so long ago, pre the big tech takeover.
Maybe my takeaway from this was like, maybe we learn that it is very hard to define life and ethics and stuff. Like, it's a very long document, and you can like double, triple it, and you would still not be able to capture everything. And it's still going to be imperfect and just like, one little mess up away, like humans always are. So it was almost like none of us, well, I'll speak for myself. I'm not religious, but the thing that's made me think of like is we're all fucked up in our own ways, and God is perfect, and God fucked up pretty big when he created us. And we're trying to figure out, as fucked up people, how do we create a thing that's perfect? And it's like, can you imagine that ever happening? It's not going to happen.
You missed the episode where we went, well, maybe you listened to it, but where we like looked at psychoanalyzing LLMs to see what human like neuroses and other things that they picked up from the training data.
Oh, yeah.
It was pretty fascinating. So agree with you there, but also not surprising, right? It's like, look at where
Dan, I think it's speaking of psycho analyzing, I think it's worth analysis that the biggest sci-fi fan in the group, you are now interested in these almost like the three laws of robotics. This is
Yeah.
basically what the Claude Constitution is, right? Like you're trying to define how artificial intelligence should be controlled.
because I guess in my mind, the three laws were not come up with by words. Words are hard. Weren't created by a corporation.
Well, we know where Dan is on the revolution when the revolution comes. But before then, Dan, why don't you tell us about rebuilding your blog this weekend?
Yeah. So as I mentioned previously, there was a big snowstorm. So I was stuck inside with a laptop and some paid subscriptions to various LLM providers. So I'm like, what's a better time to redo my 10-year-old website? So I started with Gemini. And for those of you that don't know me that well, I really like, as we mentioned, sci-fi and sort of like retro cyberpunky kind of stuff. So I wanted to try to go with the cyberpunky design. Did actually go to art school, so I could kind of design things, but I'm by no means like a practiced designer. So what I wound up doing just to see, I did a couple of revs myself and then fed those into Gemini. And then I also grabbed a whole bunch of like source material that I thought was like adjacent to the look that I was kind of going for. So I basically built a mood board, fed that into Gemini and said, use Nano Banana to like make a blog design that looks like this. So it spit out a pretty cool looking image, in my opinion, that I was like, wow, that's like pretty spot on. And then I'm like, okay, great. Turned it into HTML. And it was like, do you know that meme where it's like, draw the rest of the owl?
Yes.
Where it's like, draw two circles and then draw the rest
Draw the fucking
This is like the
owl.
reverse of that. Made the like perfectly polished exactly what I want. And then when it tried to like HTML it spit out like something that like a 2-year-old would have made, like, hammering on a
Oh, no.
keyboard with crayons or something. Like it was just horrifically bad. I did what any, amateur prompt enthusiast would do. I screenshotted the output in a browser and stuffed it back into Gemini. I'm like, this is what you made. Atone for your sins. Surprisingly, it did. So it was like, oh, yeah, that looks terrible. I should do some things. I went through basically about like 10 revs of that manually, which is kind of embarrassing. Like, I'm sure there's probably a way to automate that. Probably with CLI, you could use like a Playwright MCP server or something like that. But I was just using the web version. So it eventually made like a pretty decent layout. So then I said, once I was happy with it, I'm like, also make an article version of this. So it made an article layout. So then I took those two like HTML, like static files, basically, dropped those into Claude and said, okay, hi, Claude, we're building an 11T blog site today, which is like a static site generator. Here's all the things I want you to set up. I want to use JSX. I want to use TypeScript. I want to, blah, 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 like, all the spec-driven things of what I wanted the boilerplate to be. And I'm like, and here's 2 files, and I want you to, I made like a whole list of all the stuff I wanted to do. And the last one was take these 2 files, look at them, consolidate the styles because I had 2 separate style sheets across the 2. And then also take your best guess at where things could be turned into components and like reused across the two things. So it did an okay job at that. Like, frankly, there wasn't that much reuse, but like, also kind of doesn't matter that much for what I was doing because it's like static site gen. So then I like dropped in a bunch of markdowns from my previous version of it and hit render and boom, it was a blog site. And it took me, like, including the design and everything else, like not the hand design, but like the stuff that Gemini did, it was probably about 3 hours start to finish.
Nice.
And it was like a pretty nice looking site. I have not published it yet, which is why it's not making it into the show notes. And part of the reason for that is I have some reservations about the design being unique enough. So maybe that's a future Dan's Rant topic. But yeah. But overall, like, it was pretty impressive how quickly I was able to like spit something out that was like reasonably good. It wasn't like, you're not going to win any awards for the code, or I certainly won't for my writing, but like it was pretty cool that I could like build that in 3 hours, which like if I'd done it by hand, it definitely would have taken me probably 3 days, maybe all told, to get everything. I didn't know 11T at all, so I would have had to read all the docs and then like get it set up and then pick a template language out of the like 10 that it supports and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, or more like never, because it's just, you don't have the spare 3 days to do it.
True.
I'm going to try and do something similar this weekend because I need to update my blog. And a funny story, I had a friend who got engaged like a week ago, and he vibe
Was it
coded.
Rahul?
Rahul, are you getting engaged again? This is news. You should have told me.
That's breaking news on the pod.
Swear jar. Yeah, so my friend who's a lawyer by training, vibe coded his wedding site with an RSVP section and email replies and its own domain and everything. It was very clearly a Tailwind CSS site, but like, you know, I'm not gonna fault him for not seeing it so obvious, the Tailwind. But like, this is the future.
Poor
Were there, like-
Tailwind, the guys. You saw that other one? 80% of staff was laid off. And then they're like, well, there were only 5 people who used to work there and 4 are gone, but still 80% sounds more, you know, terrible than 4 people. LLMs have really cut into their business.
And there's like, what more can Tailwind do? Like, their product is pretty feature complete at this point.
Yeah, exactly. It happens a lot with design systems too. It's like, you've got all the components plus some weird stuff that people ask for. Like, cool, we're done. Other
Yeah.
than like reskinning it for the latest design trend or something. And yeah.
Wow,
The
it's
ve-
shocking how accurately you just described my job. That's why I have a podcast.
Careful,
The
Rahul's
wedding
going to take it
example.
next.
The wedding example is like, have you guys seen how like normal thing I'll charge you this much money, but wedding I'll charge you 2 or 3 times because it's a wedding. And I
Mhm.
wonder how much like how
Well-
many wedding jobs are we taking away with these?
I have some bad news for you, which is that Anthropic charges X for wedding tokens. How far out are we from that happening?
OpenAI was it was in the news that they're exploring taking a cut of AI assisted like creations and stuff. That's something if you use their
Whoa.
models to do something.
There.
And so you're not too far off, Dan. Like, hey, we helped you guys get married and you're still like, you know, kicking. It's been 10 years.
Man, first ads and now they want a cut of everything you build with it. Like, it really feels like
Yeah.
they're reaching, which takes us perfectly into the next topic,
You're on fire today.
which is 2 minutes to midnight, which is the segment where we talk about how close the AI bubble is to collapsing, specifically triggered by OpenAI running out of money, because it seems like that's going to be what happens first. So, as always, quick reminder, this is based on the atomic clock from the 50s, where the closer the hands got to midnight, the closer we were to a thermonuclear exchange. But in this case, it's how close are we to the free money ending. So, ton of links this week to rip through. I don't think we have to go through all of them in great detail. But the first one I did want to discuss with you all because it's relevant to our previous topic a little bit, which is, I'll just read the title because it's a great title. What if AI is both really good and not that disruptive? And I like this one a lot because it's kind of like, I guess you could argue it's maybe not super on target for 2 minutes, but like the thing that's neat about this is they're like, okay, so we've got a lot of people that are trying to like either sell LLMs or get their viewpoints about AI one way or the other known. So they're taking extreme opinions in order to do that, right? So there's like the maximalist camp where it's like, AI is going to take all your jobs. And that's kind of what I was reading into what you guys were talking about earlier with the like, you know, do we need basic income and all this other stuff?
Yeah.
And then there's the other camp that's like, I'm never using it. There's 2 extremes, right? There's the don't use it and the I love it. And those 2 things are crafting their opinions in such a way to like try to get views. And so that's causing sort of like a lack of anyone looking at what is the moderate path here, which in many respects could be the most likely, which is that LLMs are great, but at the end of the day, they'll be about as revolutionary as this cool piece of technology called the compiler, right? Or like, you know, high level programming languages, right? When we stopped writing in assembly with punch cards, like, you know, it's could be the next step in that. So that's really the point of this. And I thought that was kind of fascinating because it was like a very moderate take. It's like this stuff could be very much here to stay, very impactful, but not like civilization altering, right? In the way that some people are claiming that it could be.
Yeah, I like this quote in here that, quote, I'm arguing that the most likely outcome is something like computers or the internet rather than the end of employment as we know it, unquote. I think that's a very sensible take. If it weren't for the fact that large language models, hundreds of languages and does, 500% better translation than me for my native Chinese, I would be inclined to agree with you or agree with the author. It's definitely a force multiplier in some subset of tasks, and that subset is increasing rapidly. That makes me sound like a maximalist. I
It
didn't mean to
does.
sound
You
like
might
that.
be in that camp. You
Yeah.
might be. But hey, it made a good headline, so I'm here for it. Maybe that'll be the YouTube short from this episode is is that quote right there. So yeah, and you're strangely quiet about this, Rahul, considering we're
Yeah, I think I'm more on thinking along the same lines as Shimin is. It will cut across almost every industry and is already like cutting across it. And yeah, sure, right now seems like, people are trying to give it a go and everything, but once it gets fully deployed, it would be more than just the compiler knowledge. I think the author might need to find, I don't know. I like the Jeff Bezos electricity metaphor more, because at least that's what it seems like to me in this case.
All right. Our next article is from the Financial Times. It is a quote an interview with DeepMind's chief Demis Hassabis talking about the AI investment bubble. And I do believe this is from Davos. Yes, this is Davos. We could have just done the whole Davos.
Why didn't we go there?
I mean, it's not too late.
Next year, guys, we're gonna all go to Davos. We're gonna host some panels. Anyway, so Demi said multi-million-dollar seed round in the new startups that don't have a product of technology or anything yet seems a bit unsustainable. And of course, we can mention he's probably talking about the Thinking Machine Labs getting 10 billion in funding and then lost a whole bunch of their key staffs to Meta. This seems frothy to me.
OpenAI, I think, not Meta. Or did people also go to Meta?
Maybe it was OpenAI.
I think the guy went back to OpenAI and then a few others followed him, and OpenAI was like, hey, seems like something's wrong. Let's get him while the gates are still open.
Well, the getting's good.
But it seems, he's, that's come up in the past. Yann LeCun's company has, we were talking about earlier, $3.5 billion or whatever. Feifei Li's company, I don't know if they have a product yet. To their credit, they're coming more from the research side. I don't know if how much research experience the OpenAI CTO had, but more than we saw.
Yeah, I think we're gonna hear about. I think we'll hear about them in the next art link. But it seems like the claws are out, the knives are out.
Oh yeah,
for the OpenAI lab lead.
Yeah. So the next one is really a bit more comical than the current things, which is a TechCrunch article entitled "A New Test for AI Labs. Are you even trying to make money?" I just had to put that in there because it encapsulates the whole thing to me. This entire segment, right, is like, are we getting any economic value out of this thing? Is it sustainable? So he put these 5 levels to it in here, which are a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I thought they were kind of great. Level 5 is we're already making millions of dollars every day. Thank you very much. Level 4 is we have a detailed multi-stage plan to become the richest human beings on earth. Level 3 is we have many promising product ideas, which will be revealed in the fullness of time. Level 2 is we have the outlines of the concept of a plan. And
shout out healthcare.
Yeah. And level 1 is true wealth is when you love yourself, which could be true of some of the new labs being started up. Yeah, they love themselves so much that they started a whole new company. Yeah, but I just thought that was a kind of funny framework to look at existing companies through and some of the new projects as well. So they go through a whole list of companies. I'm gonna spare for this, but it's worth the read if you find that tagline funny.
Yeah, there are quite some level 1, level 2s on this list.
Yeah. So next up, on a little bit more serious note is another TechCrunch article. They've been in my feed a lot for AI stuff, and it's our AI agents ready for the workplace. A new benchmark raises doubts. So kind of self-evident why this one's in 2 minutes, but yeah, essentially surprising not a ton of people. This benchmark is claiming that they're not very good at most modern frontier models are not very good at investment banking tasks. Apparently Gemini 3 Flash performed the best of the group with 24% one-shot accuracy, but is 24% really the level of accuracy you want managing your money? So there's a couple other benchmarks floating around too that I mentioned, like this GDP Val one that OpenAI has put together. But it was interesting to see, giving it other real world tasks outside of coding, that they aren't necessarily doing so hot. So Rahul doesn't agree with me, but we'll find out next week if investment bankers make it into a future Rahul rampage. Yeah. And then last but not least, I wanted to really just read one quote from this PC Gamer article, which was, I believe this was another Davos thing.
Yes,
which was they're interviewing Microsoft's CEO, and he went on, or maybe he was speaking a panel, I don't know, but the pull quote is, "We will quickly lose even the social permission to take something like energy, which is a scarce resource, and use it to generate these tokens. If these tokens are not improving health outcomes, education outcomes, public sector efficiency, private sector competitiveness across all sectors, small and large," right, said Adele. And that to me is ultimately the goal, which is like, right, but also like what you just said is kind of funny because we kind of haven't hit it yet. So I guess keep trying. I don't know. I thought that was interesting that he said it that succinctly and was that sort of transparent around the fact that like people have a limited amount of tolerance for like building data centers in their backyard that are going to raise your electrical bills by X amount if you're not getting meaningful gain out of it yourself. So
I saw the same article. Also really missed those old-timey PC gamer ads. Like this giant war thunder. Those were the days. I agree with him, more or less. It seems like a lot of Davos vibes. We were talking about how we're a little short on news this last 2 weeks, but
and then Davos happens, and it's like everybody's got quotes and things to say. It was pretty much just like an AI conference this year, which is interesting. I guess not surprising, but
yeah. I'm certainly feeling a little more pessimistic after.
Rahul's not.
I was thinking after our podcast last week, I was like, I'm feeling pessimistic because crypto has started coming up in this AI stuff. And anytime crypto is anywhere, I get pessimistic.
Yeah.
I get pessimistic about things.
It's like crypto and GPUs and, like,
The rest of this is, Shimin and I were talking about like the tech hype cycle. It all reads the same to me.
But that's really what we're measuring here, right? Are we peak hype yet?
Yeah.
So where's the hype meter at this week? You want to take a swing?
Yeah.
We're at 2 right now?
Yep.
The eponymous 2 minutes to midnight.
My gut says like a minute 45. I will even go down to a minute 40.
Once the open AIs, we're going to take a cut of whatever you do comes out.
Yeah.
That scares me because it's like if they go, then it starts unraveling the circular financing, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm okay with a minute 5. I'm with you, Rahul, that like that to me does not sound great if they're reaching for stuff like that. Well, plus the
they
ads
have
thing
concepts of a plan is all.
But they're level 5. They can't be level 2.
That's what the OpenAI health app is really about, guys.
Is having a concept of a plan.
I'm with whatever you guys go with. Minute 45 sounds good.
Yeah, why not? Let's do it.
All right. Minute 45.
We can always be wrong, and it all falls down next week. That's the joy of doing a podcast that we keep forever is
we should
finding out how wrong we were at the time.
In bonus content, go check out Dario's talk at Davos, where I think him and whoever the guy from Economist is or whatever, because half of the talk is trash talking and positioning OpenAI into being a consumer company and how they might have over leveraged themselves. But he's not going to name names. But doesn't name names once. But half of the talk is just trash talking OpenAI.
The knives
After
are out
that,
at
we
Davos.
should do minutes to midnight.
Isn't that why you go to Davos, is to trash talk people? I don't know.
Yeah.
Never been. I couldn't tell you.
The rest of the guys were there, and Sam Altman wasn't there because it was Code Red or whatever.
Yeah, it's almost like when Carney gave that whole speech and didn't mention the you know who once. But on that note, that is for a different podcast. I think this is a show. You know what? I'm also gonna say it. On that note, that is the pod, guys. In solidarity, I'm also gonna throw 50 cents or 2 Solanas into the swear jar.
Boo.
Thank you all for joining our session this week. If you like the show, if you learned something new, please share the show with a friend. You can also leave us a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. It helps people discover the show, and we really appreciate it. If you have a segment idea, a question for us, or a topic you want us to cover, shoot us an email at humans@adipod.ai. We love to hear from you. You can find the full show notes, transcripts, and everything else mentioned today at www.adipod.ai. Thank you again for listening, and we'll catch you in next week's episode.
We find out who Rahul cuts next.
Rampage. Bye.